Hi, welcome. Well, I'm here with you again another week. I trust that you have had one. That is a good week. I know you had a week, but it's just a good week. And I'm trusting that that good needs overcoming, that there were things that you had to overcome and continue to press to establish the overcoming. We started these last two sessions, if you have been following, and I trust you have been following. By the way, do remember to put something in the comment column in the what you call it, the YouTube. Just below there's your comments. You can do your comments, or do remember to send me an email. And I would just love to hear you and the questions you may have, because that's important for us as we go on and develop and restructure to make sure that we are really identifying the relevance for you in your community and in your home. We have been talking about the perceptions, of course, perspectives, of family dynamics, and it is important for us to realize, as we said early on, the whole concept of that difference that comes out of our backgrounds and the socialization that we represent from each quarter with spouses, and of course the new subcultures that we have with our children. It's important for us to see how that is integrated to form this concept of family. We had mentioned earlier that when we consider family, what are we talking about? Years ago, family was those parents with children in a home. But today, it's a group of people in one space identifying with specific interpretations of life, basically. And how do we work with that from every strata in terms of maybe educational, spiritual, physical, social, environmental, and of course financial. So we are here looking at the whole concept, and we looked at the issue of generational. We had that talk already, coming out of the fact that you were of a family of origin and established in their own concepts, and then you had your own, and then you're now re-establishing what is yours and what ought to be your own family dynamic. Of course, we looked at the imaginative context, because we have not been schooled in terms of parenting, or even in terms of being a spouse or a husband and wife. We just do that by risk factors and by our own initiatives, and of course using like and dislike and desires and non-desires, and how do we frame those in terms of how we respond out of our own personalities. It is important to note that I looked at Erickson a little bit in terms of looking at from stage 1 going all the way down, stage 2, stage 4, looking at the mistrust, the trust and mistrust, and then autonomy and shame, and looking at the industry context, and how we are building the child as we live. Now, we don't realize in 365 days within a year that each day represents a new movement. I can even say new dynamic, because what would have given yesterday is different today, in terms of time, in terms of space, in terms of food, in terms of nutrition, in terms of safety, in terms of education. And you want to know, as I said, education, I can use it as a basic example. You want to know at the end of the week, what have you learned? That's your child. What has your child learned? And at the end of the work week, what have you done differently from Monday to Friday? There must be some incremental dynamic that is important to validate the whole issue of the dynamics within the family. Because you don't want what is called stagnancy within the family. I don't think anybody got a family, spouses and children and relatives to come into a space to be stagnant. And that means not to have productivity. There is always the concern, starting from birth, to have the 5 fingers, the 5 toes, you check the fingers, the toes, you check the ears, and you look there and wait. The child must be increasing in weight, the child must be increasing in size. And there are charts to see how development is established. And so therefore, that concept of growth is very much in terms of our own dynamic. So we want to know that having a child now, what's going to happen in the first year? What would you have achieved? How would you have achieved it? Of course, blindly, of course, reaching out to Dr. Google maybe, or you may have a therapist, or you may have a counselor, or you may sit with the ancestors, or you must sit with your parents and talk, because you want to know how to. Very nice. You wouldn't go and say I don't know. You never say I don't know. But the issue is you don't know. But you don't want to sound like if you are ignorant in this space of adulthood. So how did you do that? What's the difference between what I do and you do? You want to learn. I think we need to own up to the fact that would you please teach? Because I want to make sure that in the concept of growth, and especially with the seed process that is in everything, there must be this addition, which is also considered multiplication. So in multiplying, there's addition. Not just that there's a multiplication. How do I add to? How do I add virtue? How do I add patience? How do I add skill? How do I add? So that when we are beginning to define the dynamics, how do we interpret the kind of structures that are so important for us to deem growth within our family? And that is the principal thing coming out of the last two sessions, talking about generations and talking about the holisty of our imagination, bringing things to the fore, finding new concepts, finding new things in terms of how to engage spouse, engage child, to make meaningful interactions. It is important to know that we do have a sense where there is going to be the dissonance. That means the lack of interpretation in what needs to be done, and it's not forthcoming. Am I making sense here? Because you see, we want to see productivity. Oh, I better use the word progress here. We want to see progress. So in terms of how do I get there, in a very continuous, progressive pattern. Good thing. But one of the dynamics we have to look at when we are, and that's what we're dealing with today, when we deal with family dynamics, we have to look at the issue of what? What do you think that would be? Protraction. How we are distracted from our path, but yet able to retrace. I don't want to say retract. Retrace in order to come back to the place where we ought to be. Now, I use the word protracted. You know, in geometry, you have the protractor that takes you from 0 to 180 degrees. You see again? Did you hear what I said? 0 to what? 180. So again, there is that incremental context. But remember, we are not going in towards 180 degrees just on the same line. There is the incremental increase in terms of its distance, which we will want to call radius or diameter, diameter. So that there is always that context of the circle with which we are now working. So in a circle, the distances as you go along from 0 to 180 changes. And then we have acute and obtuse. So that, therefore, in context of family dynamics, there are times when the dynamic seems to be defined in terms of a very small depth as against an increased context where there's a wider space. Therefore, it's a longer or rather more extended situation. I want you to know that it is not for us to feel that we are unable to achieve when things are protracted along the way. Because what happens is that we feel we are in a place where we cannot plan the way we want to plan, and therefore, if we cannot plan, how do we prepare? So if I know that at the end of March, let's use a month, I ought to have maybe 5 trees with 4 pounds of fruit on it, or let's say tomatoes, let's use tomatoes. How do I plan that, and how do I prepare for that? Oh, the plan is easy. I can always plan. I want 4 trees, tomatoes, get a hole. But how do I prepare to get that? It's not just about putting seeds in a hole, cover it up. The preparation to get the 4 trees with 4 pounds of fruit has to do with me preparing the trees for the 4 pounds of fruit or the 4 pounds of tomatoes. So that there is a cycle in that 180 degrees, going from 0, going all the way up and coming back down to 1. If you use a protracted context, there is going to be the need for us to take note of every angle at which we are establishing the concepts of growth. Are we understanding that yet? So I want us to see that it is something that is necessary for us as we continue. Now, I think some of you are saying, I lose you. If we lose, that's okay, we can be found. If I am planting to get 4 pounds of fruit, it is easy for me to say, okay, we will get 4 pounds of fruit. But what am I doing apart from just putting the seed in the ground? There is going to be a constant need for me to oversight, I should say, have oversight of whether there's going to be what? Worms, pests, dry leaves, fallen leaves. I will need to get sticks to prop the tree up so it bears. I need to make sure that the sun is not scorching. So that all those things are preparation for the plant. You follow me now? So you see, it's not just about putting the seed in the ground. It's not just having, hey, I will get a child. Oh, I will get this. It's how I prepare in terms of those protracted concepts, getting from one stage to the other and making sure that I am preparing for that produce. 4 pounds of tomatoes. So what is that talking about? It's talking about a constant identifying of differences as we go along in terms of my interpretation of what is in the first week as against the second week. What are my expectations? Oh, I thought by now it should have flowers. No, there are no flowers. What do? I keep preparing. I keep adding and working in terms of getting this to some fulfillment. Oh, I'm looking for maybe a bud. I don't see a bud yet. Am I to cut it down and start again? No. We have to learn that there must be patience as we work with the preparation or your preparing or your investment or your identifying with growth patterns so that we can come into that fullness of fruit. Okay, enough agriculture. Let's get to us, the humans. So I'm having a family. Or am I having a family? Let me be rude here. She got pregnant. Because most times we're not actually planning to have the fruit. We want to have the fruit. So we just deposit the seed. Oh, and then the catch. She's pregnant. Now is the time to start preparing. Yeah. You don't need to have prepared. It's difficult to prepare without seed conceiving. Because what I'm preparing for. But now that there's a seed, now there's a conception, let's start preparing. How do we do that? Now you have 40 weeks in terms of the beginning to the end of that gestation period before there is the birth. How do I work that? One spouse has a different socialization to the other. One spouse has a different concept of nurturing even from the womb to the other. Some of us have no idea what to do. We just know she's pregnant. Maybe I too will have to learn how as male work with female. What is my role and my responsibilities here in terms of how I do it? And furthermore to that, what is my right? Do I have a right to attend to this? And how do I work it? Now, I don't want to discuss that right too much now. Maybe at the next session we will have more about the right. But for today, it is important for us to realize there must be some consistency as it will be with the plant, the tomatoes, now with a child. There must be the consistency in me bringing out that preparation for that fullness of this baby that is about to come. Let me change from baby. Let's take her making a chair or I'm buying some furniture. Oh, I have the money. Fine. But how do I get from money to chair? And how do I keep preparing for that chair? I have had people decide to buy furniture without looking at the space in their homes. Does that make sense? Do you know about that? Oh yeah. I have a bed. I want to buy a bed. Or I'm going to buy a queen size bed, and there is no space for the queen size bed in the bedroom. Or there's no space for that recliner. Because see, we have not actually looked at how we protract context to bring the reality of this chair in the home. It's furniture. It needs a space. Where am I putting it? And you know, talk about that, let me just throw you something here. We have washing machines or fridges or stoves that are bad. We want to replace them. We buy new stove or fridge or washing machine, and we keep the old one. Right? So we lose space because we have not really prepared to bring this new thing in and to establish its relevance within the environment. So we have the old avenue. Throw all the, no. There might be still some use in it. Not realizing that you are doubling up concepts there. So when I go to wash, why am I going to this place where I have to now make a choice of old and new? Which fridge shall I use? Why am I still having the old stove? Why am I still having the old blender? What am I doing with it? A flower pot? So we need to see today that in terms of dynamics and family consciousness and how we are working, planning and preparation, it is on a protracted perspective of incremental activities that brings you to an end. We have to learn how to develop incremental context. It is not just incrementing, what English is, in terms of numbers. I have one child, two child, or I have one car, two child, or I have one desk, two desks. No, it's about how do I bring relevance in a space and environment that establishes family connectivity. What am I going to do with this chair? Who sits in this chair? Why is this chair here? Why is the couch there? What did I buy that for? What does it mean? How do I interpret this commodity within my home? Because all of that is important for the whole psychology of attachment and the issue of bringing the reality of relations within the home. I pause for cause. Let me close off here by discussing, just throwing one thing. How do I maintain to make sure that this item does have a relevant end? And I say that with thoughts in my head that I'll share with you here. Let me share that. It break up, it broke up, it mash up. Who mash it up? Why it mash up? Because do we take thought of how do we to preserve? We want to preserve the child. We make sure the child continuously has space to run. And we say things whole day, don't walk, don't run, don't do. We hardly tell the child what to do. We always say what not to do. So therefore that child is not learning positively how to progress. The child is in constant turmoil of how not to progress and therefore would not progress, or because everything they think, imagine it's told not to. So if I run, not to run. If I walk too fast, not. If I touch this, don't touch that. If I put, oh my goodness, we have to allow the child to progress in terms of the environment and to be able to do that which is necessary for growth. You don't tell the plant to stop growing. Oh, don't bend. No, you take a stick and you bend it and let it go the other way. So we don't say don't bend. We put a stick and say grow. So if we are saying to the child don't run, what are we telling the child to do? If we tell the child don't touch, what is the child to do? So I'm saying that in terms of even you, if you buy a chair, to do what with it? To put it where? Because if you buy a chair and somebody, don't sit over that, I didn't buy that for you. So I hope you're hearing these very interesting conversations here that establishes the whole issue of the dynamics of family, that brings identity and brings cohesiveness if we will learn to work out this concept of what? I want to hear that word again. Could you say it with me? protracting. It's all going to, yes, it has its deviations, but it's all going in one direction from zero, and there's incremental content. It's not just change, but it's an incremental exercise that brings success at the end of the day. So I hope that when you're thinking of development, when you're thinking of growth, it's not just about having, it's about preparing to maintain growth within that commodity. So there's relevance, sustainability, increase, and there's enjoyment. Yeah? Is that okay with you? So hold on to that and tune in next Monday, and we will have more on this issue of family dynamics. And I want to talk a little bit then about the whole issue of assumptions and how it affects our promissory context. You promise something, but you assume will happen. Let's see if we can do that on the next broadcast. Have a good day, and God bless you.